We're going to start with a rapid 5-second memory challenge. Try to lock this exact sequence of shapes and colors into your brain. Ready? Go. If I asked you to recreate that exact sequence in 10 minutes, you almost certainly won't be able to. Staring at isolated pieces of information without any underlying context makes them fragile. We've been heavily trained to approach learning with a cramming mindset. We scan the environment for the quickest path to the correct answer, hold it just long enough to pass a test, and then discard it. It's a natural reflex. As children, we inherently gravitate toward the lenient teacher, the authority figure who spoon-feeds us the solution rather than watching us struggle to find it. Getting the answer handed to you feels efficient in the moment, but the second the real world changes the parameters of the test, that memorized solution breaks down, leaving you paralyzed. Let's switch from passive recall to a task that requires your brain to actively construct a solution in real time. Look closely at this split-screen illustration of a magician. You have exactly 10 seconds to find 3 subtle discrepancies between the left and the right sides. Time's up. To spot the missing shoe, the extra eye, or the incorrect date, you didn't pull a pre-saved file from your memory bank. You used active pattern recognition and spatial analysis to evaluate the environment. Searching a scene physically engages different neural circuits than trying to passively hold on to a string of random shapes. Your brain is working, testing visual hypotheses, and discarding incorrect assumptions. When you force your brain to arrive at the answer through its own investigation, the resulting neural pathways are dense and durable. The mental struggle itself is the mechanism that builds permanence. Cognitive psychologists refer to this process as deeper encoding. This is the principle stating that information demanding significant effort and time to obtain becomes more permanently integrated into memory. We can see this principle working at a massive scale by looking at Generation X. They grew up in a high-contingency environment, a setting where actions and consequences were directly linked, and they had to solve daily problems without the safety net of the internet. This archival photo shows a traditional library card catalog. Before digital search, finding a single piece of knowledge had a literal physical cost. You spent hours hunting through categorized index cards just to locate one book that might hold the answer. That high-friction environment built a specific psychological trait known as mechanical intuition, the ingrained belief that if you are willing to get your hands dirty, you can master the physical world around you. Look at this photograph of a young boy repairing his bike. When a chain slipped, there was no digital tutorial. You flipped the bike upside down, grabbed a tool, and physically traced the mechanical failure until you identified the fault. The lack of instant gratification forced the brain into self-reliance. Demanding environments serve as the primary engine for building competence. Let's apply that cognitive friction to you right now. We'll run a rapid-fire sequence of logic tests designed specifically to simulate that necessary mental struggle. Here is a complex 3D object, and next to it, a row of nearly identical silhouettes. Now, you have to mentally rotate the object and use spatial reasoning to determine exactly which shadow matches it perfectly. Now, look at this math equation constructed from matchsticks. It currently reads 6 + 4 = 4, which is false. Your task is to mentally rearrange the components by moving exactly one matchstick to make the equation true. To solve this, your brain has to project multiple abstract scenarios simultaneously, testing variables to see which one creates a valid mathematical statement. Finally, scan a dense, visually noisy image. You are looking for one specific hidden shape. Your visual cortex has to actively filter out an overwhelming amount of useless data to isolate the single correct signal. These exercises operate like a strict teacher. If you give a rowdy student a massive classroom responsibility, the severe constraint forces their behavior to adapt. Your brain requires those same difficult, unyielding constraints to evolve. The acute frustration of being stuck is not a sign of failure. It is the biological mechanism for building intelligence. Compare the two mental states we've explored. When a cramming mind forgets a memorized fact, it experiences immediate panic. The logical mind remains calm in the exact same situation. A logical mind doesn't fear forgetting because it doesn't rely on memory files. It possesses internal frameworks to deduce rules and reconstruct answers from scratch. True intellectual capability is defined by your willingness to sit with confusion. It is the endurance to remain stuck on a problem and actively resist the urge to immediately ask an authority figure for the solution. Examine your own modern daily habits. Notice how quickly you instinctively reach for a search engine the millisecond you encounter friction. Try treating everyday challenges like an escape room. Embrace the struggle, reject the spoon-fed answers, and intentionally seek out cognitive friction. It's the only way to build the logic required to figure